Today, I'll show you my top 3 full body functional exercises using a medicine ball. So I oftentimes like to add a little bit of variety to my training, where the main focus isn't on targeting a key muscle and muscle building as it is, but it's on movement techniques. So in a way, functionality, as I see it, is a way to be able to use the strength or the muscle that you have to transmit force and move into space. Be functional, be efficient. You squat heavy so you can be able to get out of the couch and jump higher. You deadlift so you can pick heavy things and you can sit straight up, right? This is what functionality is about. We'll discover a couple of benefits of the so-called functional training, but first, let's discuss your classic strength versus functional strength training. So classic strength training, these are your movements like the bench press, the deadlifts, the pull-ups, are great for various aspects of conditioning like maximal strength and muscle building or hypertrophy. I doubt this is the all-you-need type of approach to build a functional body. For longevity, for efficiency, for painless and fluid movement, to a degree, learning how to transfer force and use elastic energy and be more movement efficient and stabilize your joints and absorb shock better, to my understanding, is what functionality is. While this isn't all of how I train, classic strength training represents about 70 to 80% of my training, and I like to add a 20 to 30% of variety in things like functional movements where I do train more coordination and elasticity and sort of efficiency in the movement patterns that I am training for, rather than just trying to stimulate a specific muscle. By the way, classic strength training is awesome for tendon and muscle adaptation and growth, for building strength, for enhancing your stability, etc. But my regular exercise would predominantly include more movements like this, such as the squats, deadlifts, overhead presses, and then you have additionally some coordination-based, sort of harder, more complicated moves that I usually do with a medicine ball I'll show you today. This is what becoming more athletic at the end means: to be able to use, express, or transmit the force that you are able to create. At the end, a functional body is the one who can crawl and jump and throw and hinge and bend and move efficiently. The first exercise is the unilateral lunge to curl. It's a one-sided exercise that primarily targets the front supportive leg. The goal is to sort of learn how to transmit force from the front leg to the arm, so we do as little of the movement as possible with our arms, and try to transition and sort of transfer that force from the leg upwards. It's great for unilateral stability, for locking your hip and squeezing your glutes and enhancing leg strength. And within this type of curl, it's very hard to overactivate the traps, which are commonly tight in sitters and those who do a lot of push training. The curl trains the ability to lift heavy objects and position them properly on our shoulder. Let's start on the right side. In the starting position, we stand up straight. 80% it's on our front foot, squeezing the glute and locking the hip of the right leg. We position the ball on our shoulder. The lever is small this way. Then we slowly roll the ball down and stop in a slightly wider lunge stance for better stability. Drive up through the front leg, lift the ball up on your shoulder and lock the hip. Lowering down, you'll notice a slight pelvic tilt to the side. This is perfectly normal as we're built like this. Drive up through the leg, transfer the force through the arm and curl the ball up on your shoulder, lock the hip. As you can see, the body works quite hard to maintain stability. We're pushing through the front leg, training quads, glutes, and hamstrings. We're curling the ball, activating our biceps and front delts. We're stabilizing our hips, and the core works hard to keep us balanced. Additionally, there's an aerobic component. In other words, we're suboptimally training more things at once, becoming more functional in the process. The second exercise is over the shoulder throw. This involves the correct technique of picking heavy things up from the ground and either positioning them on your shoulder or throwing them back. The point is to learn how to squat correctly, straighten the spine and really activate the legs, lifting these objects with prior bracing and correct core activation, and really activating and pushing through with the legs to transfer force upwards, from the legs to the arms and overhead. The starting position is in between a lunge and a squat. We stand diagonally, hips width apart, rear leg is on the toes for easier descending phase and more hip mobility. We squat down, position our fingers below the ball, we don't want to hold the ball. In this squat, we straighten our spine, tighten our core and focus on activating our legs to push up from the ground. Transfer force onto the arms and throw the ball over diagonally. After each throw, we do a light step forward and turn back around, repositioning with the other leg. This movement translates into correct lifting of heavy things, and it adds strength in the lower part of the squat, helping us to learn how to use kinetic energy and transfer it onto the arms. The diagonal lift off trains the obliques, and the glutes are used to lock the hip and push the ball up. Just watch around for any gym buddies lying around on the floor, please. The third one is a lateral ball slam, and it's probably not what you think. There's a classic exercise where you're holding the ball and then you're rotating with your torso and throwing the ball onto a wall. This is not the same thing. Instead of slamming the ball onto the side, we're actually lifting the ball from the ground, picking it up with a correct single leg deadlift-like technique, using our obliques and core activation to properly hinge and take the ball. We're lifting it up, training rotational strength, and then we're throwing the ball back, emphasizing core flexion and throw. This one improves core functionality, core stability, and core strength, improving the little micro movements and deficits we have in rotational strength, while learning to correctly position our hips, knees, and ankles to really use the glutes and our hamstrings and our hip stability to properly lift the ball before throwing. Set a ball next to you on the right side. Transition your weight to the right leg, do a hip hinge, grip the ball and tighten your core. You focus on correctly doing the single leg deadlift, meaning you straighten your spine, activate the core and use your glutes. You lift the ball and explode up using your supportive leg. We incorporate the core, helping us lift overhead. Then we transition on the other side, step on the other foot and use your core and arm strength to drop the ball as hard as possible. Just as with cable ab crunches, we're trying to combine core flexion, ball momentum, and vertical push to throw the ball as hard as we can. This movement lets you use your full kinetic chain and get a sense of how to transmit force. It translates to better shock absorption, change of direction, and hip stability within specific athletic movements. It can also define the obliques and boost throwing power. When it comes to the reps and sets philosophy with this type of training, you really want to master the technique first. Usually that's done by training with way lower weights and loads on your body than you're capable of pushing for the first few training sessions, so you really master the technique and feel it. Once you get a grip over what you're doing, you can start adding a little bit more weight onto the exercise. Even afterwards, you're still using way lighter loads than you would with conventional training, and you're still trying to push through with a correct technique and squeeze at the end. You're not necessarily counting reps and sets, and this is more of a coordination-based, complex movement type of training. It's a different approach. You don't count from 1 to 10. It's more like listening to your body and really feeling up to which point you can do it correctly and activate the correct muscles, what feels good and what is done with a proper technique. Once the technique starts slacking off, you're done, and you rather listen to your body than count reps. As a general rule, I would like to keep my sets at about 3 here at maximum, and reps are between 10 to 25. And I know there's a lot of variability, but it's a different training approach. You're doing it until you can do it correctly and it feels the way it should feel. My functional strength athletes, until the next one. Throw a subscribe for more such content.